How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Vav, Daf 46 of Masechta Sanhedrin, friends. Yo, friends. I wouldn't be surprised if there's audio issues in this episode. It's just so freaking cold here, and I think that the microphone is sensitive to cold. I think that's our hypothesis. So I have the backup recording. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up having to rely on it. But yeah, oh boy, is it cold where I am. Sheesh, it hasn't been above freezing in since the beginning of the week. It's Thursday now. Anyways. Alright, what am I going to tell you? Let's go weiter. Okay. Where are we? Where are we? Right, Mem Vav. Okay, okay, gewaldig. It's a good daf. What do you want me to tell you? We learned 2 Mishnayos today. Okay, we're going to start on daf Mem Hey Amud Beis at the Mishnah, about 10-15 lines from the bottom, I'd say. Mem Hey Amud Beis at the Mishnah. Kol Niskol and Nislin Divrei Eliezer. So Eliezer says that anybody who gets stoned gets hanged afterwards. Whereas the Chacham disagree, they say no, not everybody who gets stoned, certain people who get stoned. A blasphemer and a getchke worshiper, they get hanged after being stoned, the corpse. All other stoners, somebody who's Mechal Shabbos, for example, would be hanged, would be stoned but not hanged. Okay. Where are we? Ha'ish telin eisei ponav klape ha'om, that a man, when he's hanged with his face facing the people, so the people could see his face. But a woman who gets hanged, she faces the tree, not the people. The Chacham say, look, the Chacham disagree and say, men are hanged, women are not hanged. So the Chacham say, hanging is only by Migadif and Oved Avodah Zarah, and it's only for men. Reb Eliezer, however, responds to his colleagues, responds to the Chachamim, and he says, Valo, Shimon ben Shotach, Tolanoshim ba'ashkelin, but Shimon didn't Shimon ben Shotach hang women in Ashkelon? Amulo, they responded to Reb Eliezer, Shmeinim noshim tolo vein donin shnayim biyom echod. Sure, Shimon ben Shotach hanged 80 women in Ashkelon because they were getting into it because they were machshefers, and that whole thing was exceptional because generally there's a halacha that we're going to talk about in the Gemara that we don't judge 2 capital cases in one day. Yet he judged 80 in one day. Clearly this was an exceptional circumstance, and therefore we can't bring a proof from an exceptional circumstance. Generally, however, argue the Chachamim, women would not be hanged. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Vehumas v'salisa, and somebody will be killed, you hang him. Yachol kol amumasin nislin, is it possible that every person who is killed misas bezdin, regardless of the type of punishment, even chenek or whatever, everybody gets hanged? Tamlomer kikilalas elokim talui, that it is the curse of God to be hanged. Basically, this is talking about a scenario where you have somebody who blasphemed God, and he blasphemed God, and then you hang him. And what ends up happening? The people say, hey, why is that guy hanging there? And then the other people say, oh, he cursed God. And everyone's going to be talking about how God was cursed. And this is no good. So that's in Berach Hashem, V'gnaya davar klapi ma'ali zocher, says Rashi. It's pasnish. It's not mechubad that people should be talking about how God was blasphemed. So right, okay. So it says. So it talks about a megadef, a blasphemer, being hanged. Ma'mekalel zeh shebaskila, and just like the blasphemer gets stoned, af kol shebaskila to Rebbe Eliezer. So therefore, all people who get stoned, right? Not all people who are killed capitally, right? Not hereg, not sreifa, not chenek, but just like a blasphemer is stoned, so all stoners get hanged, according to Rebbe Eliezer. Where am I? Whereas the Chacham say, "Ma'mekalel zeh shekofar beikar." The Chacham go a little bit deeper. They drill down a little bit deeper. They say, not just that a blasphemer is stoned, but a blasphemer is a particular type of blasphemy is a particular type of offense, which is that he's kofar beikar. He is in denial of the main thing. He's in denial of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Av kol shekofar beikar. So therefore, who is hanged? People who are kofar beikar. So blasphemers and getchker enthusiasts of the avodah zarah. They are hanged, none others. Frag the Gemara. What is sort of the rationale for the machlokes between, what's sort of the context, the background for the machlokes between Rebbe Eliezer and the Chacham? Rebbe Eliezer saying that all stoners are hanged, and the Chachamim say only megadef and oved avodah zarah. Rabbanon darshe klole ufrote Rebbe Eliezer darish ribuye umeute. We've seen this before. Klal ufradu klal versus ribui umiut viribui. Who could tell me, who can explain for everybody at Babylon Talmud the difference between these two approaches? The difference is thus. Okay, the way that it works with klal, ufrat, uklal is that you have a general rule, okay, in this case, vehumas, right, visalisa, that somebody who's killed is hanged. So that includes all people who are killed would be hanged. But then it says davka mikalo, and it says davka mikalo. So now here's the thing: if you learn klal ufrat, so the way klal ufrat works, it means that the prat is an explanation of the klal. Okay, so you have a general rule v'humas v'salisa that anybody who's killed gets hanged. That skila, streif, erik, chenek, everybody's hanged. But then we have kikilas Hashem tolu. Right? Let me just make sure that I'm using the yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then that is, wait, let me just make sure I got all my, okay, there's pasuk hey, and I guess pasuk vav. Okay, yeah, okay, v'humas, yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yep. Where are we? Yeah, okay. Okay, got it. Okay, got everything. Yeah. So first it says v'humas v'salisa. Okay, so that's general. Skila, sreif, ereg, v'chenek. Anybody who's killed gets hanged. But then it says kikilas Hashem tali, davka megadef. So if you learn klal ufrat, that's explain. The prat is explaining the klal. That when it says v'humas v'salisa, it's specifically talking about Megadef. That is it. Megadef, nothing else. When you then have a second klal, right? So you have a klal, ufrat, uklal, a second general rule. So that is coming to expand the prat and say it's not just megadef, not just a blasphemer, but we'll actually open it up to things that are similar to a blasphemer. For example, an avodah zarah enthusiast, an ovid avodah zarah. That's if you learn klal ufrat uklal. Okay, so klal ufrat uklal is that you basically you go broad, and then you go ultra specific, and then you expand it to things that are similar to the specific. That's klal ufrat uklal. The approach of riboy umiut v'riboy is you start with everything, just like the klal ufrat uklal, right? You start with everything. V'humas v'salisa, that everybody who's killed, right? Skila, sreif, ereg, v'chenek, everybody is hanged. Now, where they start to deviate the klal ufrat uklal and the ribum miut rib is when you go specific. Now it says, right, ki kilalas Hashem talui, specifically megadef. So whereas klal ufrat uklal says that it's only megadef, that it's explaining what the klal is, that it's only the megadif. No. In ribuy u'miut is that it's including things similar to megadif. Basically, where you end at, where klal ufrat uklal ends, which is that includes things similar to the prat, that is what the miut is in ribuy miut and ribuy. So basically, when you have v'humas v'salisa, that's everything, and then kikilas Hashem talui is things that are similar, right? It's basically using megadif as an example of the things, of the context in which there would be where you would hang the people. So just like megadif is kofer beikar, so therefore any scenario where the kofer beikar, including oved avodah zara, there would be hanging. That you get from the miut, from kilas Hashem talui. And then with riboy miut riboy, when it then opens it up, once again it's going to include everything. Well, then what was the point of the miut? So it's usually to exclude a specific thing. So what happens is when it then opens it up again, it's opening it up to all skilas, to the exclusion of sreifa, hereg, chenek. Okay, so basically, so the chachamim who say that the only misas, the only capital punishments that are have hanging are megadef and oved avodah zara, because they say when you have v'humas v'salisa, it includes all capital punishment. Then it says kikilas Hashem tali, which is only megadef. Then the second klal opens it up to also oved avodah zara. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer, who says all people who are stoned are hanged, he says, well, v'humas v'salisa includes all capital punishment. Then when you have the kilas Hashem talui, so it's not just, so the miut is that it's not just megadef, but all things that are similar to megadef, including oved avodah zara. When you then have the second riboy, to open it up to include all people who get stoned, to the exclusion of skila, of sreifa, hereg, and chenek. Okay. So let us read it inside. So where are we? So what is sort of the context, the background of their machlokes? Rabbanan darshan klal ufrati. The rabbis darshan klal ufrat. Rabbi Eliezer darish ribuye umiute. Rabbanan darshan klal ufrati. Okay, so the rabbis say klal ufrat. V'humas v'salisa klal. So when it says that he's killed and you hang him, that's a klal. It's a general rule. Okay, it applies to all capital punishment. Ki kilalas, when you now talk about kilala prat, it's specifically megadef. So actually, hanging only applies to megadef. Now, if we would mamish juxtapose, if we would have v'humas v'salisa, and immediately after that it says kikilas Hashem talui, so then all we would have is klal ufrat, and hanging would be limited to only megadef. However, right, so ain b'chlal elo mash b'fad, would be klal ufrat, and therefore the prat is explaining the klal and saying that it is only megadef. Hani'in midachrina lo, nothing else. But if you look in the psukim, there's actually a bunch of stuff in between, meaning it's it's two consecutive psukim, but between v'humas v'salisa and kikilas Hashem tali, there's a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of words, a bunch of other things. Right? Well, I'll just read the pasuk even. And now it talks about lo salam livlaso ala eitz kikar v'sigbarenu bayomahu, and then it says kikilas elokim talui. The distance between, the fact that there's filler in between the klal and the frat is basically telling us that we can actually expand it again and include things that are similar to the prat, to megadef, and that is ovdei avodah zara. Which is similar to megadef. It's kofer beikar. Rabbi Eliezer darish ribuye umiute, whereas Rabbi Eliezer darshins ribuy and miut v'humas v'salisa, and therefore when it says v'humas v'salisa, it's including all capital punishment. There is hanging ribuy kikilas miut. And when you have the kikilas, it is a miut. And ihavu mekarvil adodi. And if v'humas v'salisa was right before kikilas Hashem tali, they were juxtaposed. Well then, lo havu marbinon elo avodas kocham dedamile. Well then, we would have ribuy and miut. And basically we would know only about Megadef and Oved Avodah Zarah, that they are hanged. But now because they are spread out from one another, Vumas V'Salisa and Kikilas Hashem Talui Ahani L'Abuye Sharon Iskalin, so the Riboy Umiut Uriboy comes to include other right, all stoners, right? Everybody who's stoned are hanged according to Rabbi Eliezer. Ish Nisla V'Chulei. So the Mishnah had, now moving on, the Mishnah had said that according to the rabbis, only men are hanged, women are not. My time of the Rabbanan, how come the rabbis say that only men are hanged? Omar Krah, because the pasuk says V'Saliso o so, because the pasuk says that you will hang him. Oso v'lo osa, you hang him, you don't hang her. Rabbi Eliezer oso below ksuso, whereas Rabbi Eliezer says no, oso is not to limit, is not to exclude osa. Oso is to say him in all of his glory, just him, no clothes. But it would apply to men and women. I want to say taka. Okay, you're right. So Elo Amar Krah, but the pasuk says v'chiyeh beish chet. Right? It says v'chiyeh beish chet mishpat mavis v'humas v'salisa ala eitz. So v'chiyeh beish, we're talking about men when it comes to hanging. Ish v'lo isha, not women. For Rabbi Eliezer, hi v'chiyeh beish my darish bei. What does Rabbi Eliezer learn from v'chiyeh leish beish? Amar Shlakish says Shlakish Aulim Ute ben Sarah Umar, to exclude a ben Sarah Umar, that a ben Sarah Umar would not be hanged because he's not an ish, he's a ben. Right? We're going to learn about ben Sarah Umar in a parak that's called ben Sarah Umar. It's in right. We're now in the 6th parak. Ben Sarah Umar is the 8th parak. What is a ben Sarah Umar? I know it came up yesterday. I was so tired yesterday. I didn't explain it. Ben Sarah Umar is be'etzem. He's not quite an adult. So I guess he's probably about maybe like 12 and a half or so. It's a very short window that this child could be a ben Sarah Umar. Basically, he's showing signs of being sort of basically showing signs of being that he's going to grow up to be a problematic member of society. Or live outside of society. He steals, and the concern is that he's going to grow up and be a very bad individual, so we kill him. Okay, it's a very specific kind of, okay, the Gemara is going to talk about it. But anyway, that's a ben Sarah Umar. This is basically this bad kid and we kill him. So, the thing is, but again, it's a very specific case. It's not like we're going around killing people. Also remember, again, there's that Mishnah in Makis which talks about how, like, any bezdin that actually kills people, even rarely, is considered, is viewed negatively. So we're not going around killing people all the time. But anyways, so by ben Sarah Umar, so ben Sarah Umar is stoned, and yet he would not be hanged because it's a ben Sarah Umar, and it says ki yeh ish. That a davka, a man, you hang, but not this child. Fine. So it excludes ben Sarah Umar from hanging. But one second, what do you mean Rabbi Eliezer is excluding a ben Sarah Umar from hanging? He includes a ben Sarah Umar in hanging. We learn about ben Sarah Umar niskal v'nisla de Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that a ben Sarah is stoned and hanged. So Ella. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak l'rabos ben Sarah Umar. Rather, says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, ish is coming to include a ben Sarah Umar. How so? My time, how come? The Amar Krah, because the pasuk says v'chiyeh beish chet ish v'lo ben. Okay, because the pasuk says that if you have an ish who sins and he's killed and he's hanged, so an ish to exclude a ben. So to exclude a ben Sarah Umar, and then chet, and when it says chet, a sin. Mishal cheto nerag. We're also talking about somebody who's being killed because of the sin that he committed. Yotze ben Sarah Umar she'al shum sofo nerag. Again, to the exclusion of a ben Sarah Umar, because a ben Sarah Umar is not killed for what he did now. Ultimately, now he didn't do anything so bad. Stole a little bit of meat, stole a little bit of wine. he's killed because because the assumption is that if he's doing this at this age, what's going to happen is his life is going to lead him to a place where he is addicted to things and he ends up robbing people and killing people because he needs to get his fix, and it's going to be a big problem. So he's not killed because of what he did now. He's killed because of what we project will be the outcome in the future. So basically, we have two strikes going against including a ben Soramor in this pasuk. It says V'kiya ish, and he's not an ish, he's a ben. Chet, and he's not killed for his chet, he's killed for some projection. So it's a double miut. So have a miut achar miut. So he's excluded twice in this pasuk. Ve'en miut achar miut el l'rabos. When we have a double exclusion, it's actually coming to include, right? Two negatives create a positive, and that is why. So that is what Rabbi Eliezer does with this pasuk, and it ultimately includes a ben Soramor for hanging. Amar loen Rabbi Eliezer ve'aloshim ben shotach tol enoshim v'chulei. Oh, okay. So there was this dialogue where Rabbi Eliezer says that women are also hanged. He then says to the Chacham, didn't Shimon ben Shatach after all hang women in Ashkelon? And they said, yeah, but that was exceptional because generally we don't judge two capital cases in one day, and this was 80 in a day. Rav Chizda says, when we say that we don't judge two capital cases in one day, that is talking about two different penalties, right? Skila and Sreifa. But if it's one punishment, Donin, you can. But one second, Shimon ben Shatach, it was all one punishment. And the rabbis respond that generally speaking, right, if this wasn't so exceptional, we would not judge more than one case, even though they were all being judged for the same punishment. Rather like this. Lo shanu ela b'misa achas ki'ein shtei misos. Even if it's the same punishment, but if there are different specifics, how so? Kigon shtei averis. For example, two averis. So, for example, if you have somebody who's over a case of avodah zara and a case of chilul Shabbos are being judged, they're both skila, but they're two completely different averis. We would not judge them in the same day. And the same thing by Shimon ben Shatach. This woman was doing ov, that one was doing yedoni. They were all doing different offenses, and therefore, even though it's the same punishment, they would not judge. We wouldn't judge multiple of them in the same day. But if it's mamish the same thing, the same punishment, the same sin, well then, donin, you can judge multiple cases in one day. Masav Rav Ada bar Ahava. Rav Ada bar Ahava asked an interesting question. We don't judge two cases in one day. Even a noif and a noefes, meaning, let's say you have a woman who's married and she has an extramarital affair. So we would not judge, right? There's obviously, it takes two to tango, right? There's a boy and a girl involved in this. We would not judge both of them on the same day. But why not? They're both getting chenek. They both did the same avera. They did it together. So on the one hand, we're saying that if it's the same punishment and the same offense, we can judge multiple in one day. And yet we're saying we don't judge a noif and a noefes. How does this shtim? So Tigmar of Chizda bebas koin uvoyala or bebas koin vezov mizomel. Interesting. So if Chizda says, yeah, when it says that we don't judge the noif and noefes, it's talking about a bas koin shezinsa. A bas koin shezinsa, her punishment is sreifa. However, it says by her, he boish tisarif, you burn her in fire. He veloy boy Allah, he and not the person who sleeps with her. The person who sleeps with her would get a different punishment based on if she's married or an Aram Marasa. If she's an Aram Marasa, he would get skila. And if she is an Eishes Ish, he would get chenek. Right, but she gets streifa. So in that case, basically, she's getting one punishment, streifa, and the person who she slept with is getting a different punishment, either skila or chenek, depending on if she's an aram marasa or not. Alternatively, alternatively, if you have a bas kohen and then you have two witnesses come to Bezdin and say, right, she's a bas kohen shezinsa, so she gets sreifa. If they become Eidim Zomimim, well then they would get whatever the Boel would get. But if then other witnesses come and make the Zimers into Zoomers, and basically the original witnesses are actually fine, so we could trust them. The ones who made them Eidim Zomimim are the ones who are liars. So now the original witnesses are reinstated, which means that she's now on the line. She's going to get sreifa. But the Zomimei Zomimel, the Zomimei Zomimel, right? Basically, the ones who, right, the Zimers who are now Zoomers, they are going to get the punishment that they tried to give to the original witnesses, which was depending whatever the Boel would have gotten, which is either skila or chenek. So basically, again, these groups, right, the Zimers who are now Zoomers, they would get either skila or chenek, while she would be getting sreifa. So again, whether it's the Boel, whether it's the Zomimei Zomimel, there would be two different punishments. She would be getting sreifa, they would be getting either skila or chenek, and that is why they cannot be judged on the same day. Tani, we're learning about Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer Shamaiti. I heard Shebezdin Makin Vonshol Menatere, that Bezdin hits and meets out capital punishment. Shalom Menatere, for things that aren't necessarily right in the law. They're not doing it in order to like make up rules and be over al divrei Torah, rather to make a fence and a protection for the Torah. For example, there was a maisa where the person who was riding on a horse on Shabbos. Now, riding on a horse on Shabbos is an Isur D'Rabbanan. B'mei Yevonim, during the times of the Greeks, and it was a rough time for the Yidden at that time, and the Greeks were trying to stop the Yidden from following halacha and keeping Shabbos. So, and here was this person that was riding a horse on Shabbos. Now, generally it's an Isur D'Rabbanan, but the rabbis had to make a siag la Torah, ve'vi'u lebezdin v'saklu, and they stoned him take for being mechal Shabbos, lo mipnei sheroy lechach, not because he was actually chayiv skila, because it was only midr Rabbanon, but elo shashah tzricha lechach, but that is what they needed at the time in order to safeguard the Holy Torah and halacha. Shuv ma'aseh b'adam echad sheitiach es ishtoi tachas atena. There was a ma'aseh that a fellow was having bia with his wife under a fig tree. Vaviu lebezdin, they took him to Bezdin Vilku and they hit him. They gave him makis. Not because he was actually chayiv makis, but we needed to do it because I guess he was being very inappropriate, and I guess they didn't want an inappropriate society, so they had to say, hey, you can't do this, and they hit him. Interesting that fig trees seem to be like a place where things go on. Right over here, he had bia with his wife under a fig tree. There's right there. There was ma'aseh ben zakai beuktzei teinim. Okay, azoy, fine. Says the Mishnah, ketzad tolin oso. So how do they hang him? Okay, they stone him. Now they hang him. How does that work? Mishakin es hakora ba'aretz. They take a beam and they stick it into the ground. Ve'etz yotzei, and then they take it's like a gallows, because this is not very positive imagery. But B'etzem, there's like a vertical beam, and then there is a horizontal beam, a cross beam that is like stuck into the vertical beam, all right, and hang. Now they're not hanging him from his neck, right? He's already dead. He's already stoned. They're not hanging him from his neck. They're hanging him from his hands. And you put one hand, you put his hands together. Ve'tola also, and kacha you hang him. Rabbi Yossi Omer says, Rabbi Yossi akora muta ala koso. Rabbi Yossi says you don't stick the beam into the ground, you just lean it against the wall. V'sola also, and you hang him k'derech shatabachen osin, like the butchers do, right? They hang a goat or whatever. Umatirin also miyad, and then immediately, as we're going to see this in the Gemara, you basically put him up, take him down. Mamash, just to be yotzes on. Put him up, take him down. He's not hanging there for a long time at all. Ve'imlon, and you got to take him down. And if you leave him there overnight, chaval. over all of B'leisaisa, you're in violation of a mitzvah Leisaisa. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Loi Sodom Nivloso Ala Eitz. Do not leave his corpse there over on the tree overnight. Ki covers berenu. You got to bury him. Ki kilas elokim toli v'gomer, because it's the curse of God to have this person hanging there after he blasphemed, and people are going to say, why is he there? Oh, he cursed God. It's not nice. People are going to say, oh, how come this guy's hanging there? Well, because he cursed God, and it's not. And God's, that also contributes to God's name being profaned. Omer Ibn Meir says, when a person is bitza'ar, in pain, in agony, shchina ma'at loshen emeris, what does the Rebbeinu Shalom say? What does the divine presence say? Kolani mereishi, kolani mizroi. My head hurts, my arm hurts. What does Rashi say? Where am I? Come on. Okay. Kimo shadnu yagev ayiv v'omer roshi kovet alei v'hedek v'zoi kovet alei v'ainu kilas kal leis ani. Right. I'm not light. Any kal. I'm not light. I have a headache. No, the reason why I checked this out is because the Gemara talk is machlekes Abai and Rava about this. It seems like the Rashi is going like Abai, but anyways, it means right. It's like kilas is like kal leisli. I'm not light. I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling bad. I have a headache. Right. The Rebbeinu Shalom says kalani meroishi kalani mizroi. I feel horrible. In Kena Mokum Mitztar, if like this, the Rebbeinu Shalom is in agony, is in pain, al domacho rishoyim shenishbach, for the blood of nudniks that is spilled, kavachomer al domin shel tzadikim, then certainly for the blood of the righteous. V'lozo b'vad amu, and now in terms of making sure that a person is buried before, not right. We say that by these people who are hanged, we do not leave them there all night. Now this does not apply just to people who are hanged. Elakol amelin as meso over below saise. Rather, anybody who allows a nifter to spend the night without being buried is in violation of this lav of losolin of loso ala eitz, that this lav of losolin applies to all nifters. Anybody who passes away, you bury them right away. You don't leave them overnight. Helino lechvodo, but if you wait till the next day in his honor, lavilo aron v'tachrichim. If you have to bring a coffin or shrouds, eino over olav, well then you are not in violation of losolin nivloso. V'lo hayu kovin osa b'gvur savosav. Now back to somebody who's hanged, who was stoned and then hanged. We do not bury him in his family graves. Ella shtei bate kvaros ay misukonin lebezdin. Rather, Bezdin had their own cemeteries. There were two of them. Achas l'neirogim v'nechnokin. One for those who are killed by Saif or by Chenek, which are like the lower level, so to speak, capital punishments. Ve'achas l'niskalim v'nisrafin, and a separate cemetery for those who are killed with skila and sreifa, which are considered to be the more severe of the capital punishments. Nisakal abosar, and then once the flesh begins to decompose, they don't need to stay in these designated bate kvaros anymore. They collect the bones and they bury them in the family plots. At that point, the Gemara is going to talk about this. And the relatives come and they say shalom to the judges, uv'shalom ha'edim, as well as to the witnesses. Klomar, meaning she'ein b'libeinu aleichem shedin emes dantem. Look, we don't hold anything against you. We have nothing against you in our hearts because we know that you judged fairly and correctly. And they would not mourn. And Rashi points out, because by mourning you are basically right? Meaning normally we have shiva for people, but these people, we don't sit shiva, and it's a bizayon for them. It's a disgrace, and this sort of bizayon that they experience after their death will be a sort of kapara for them, an atonement for them, that they're being disgraced this way. But But the family could be owning him. They could be distraught about it because distraught is internal. You're not having people over at the house. You're not sitting Shiva with a big sign outside the door. We're sitting Shiva. These are the hours. No, privately they can mourn on their own in their hearts, but no kind of public displays of mourning. And that way it'll be sort of a disgrace for this person who was killed on account of the sins that he committed. And that should be a kapara. Hazoy. Says the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ilu nemar chet v'salisa. Right? What is it supposed to say? V'chiyah, what is it? V'chiyah beish chet mishpat mavis v'humas v'salisa. So we also so it says v'humas v'salisa. Humas and salisa are next to each other, but chet is not next to that. Right? V'chiyah beish chet, and then it says mishpat mavis. And it's vehumas v'salisa. So if it said, ilu nemar chet v'salisa, if chet and talisa were next to one another, Haisi Omer, Tolan also v'acharkach memisin also. First they hang him up by his hands. Kederch sha'amalchus also like the kings do. They hang the guy up by his hands and they start beating him up while he's still alive. Seems very, very, not nice. Where am I? So where am I? Talmud Lomar, there it says v'humas v'salisa. Memisin oso v'acharkach tolan oso. First we kill him and then we hang him. Okay, so how does this work? We basically wait to kind of wrap up the din until close to sunset. V'gomen as dino, and we complete the din. Memisin oso, and we kill him. And then afterwards we hang him extremely briefly. Echad kosher v'echad matir. One of them ties, another person unties, and that's it. Just in order to be yotzezan, just in order to be mekayim the mitzvah of hanging, and that's it. Chik-chak. Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught eights. When the positive of salisa also al eights. Okay, so when it says tree, I would think, okay, the tree could be chopped down. It could be not chopped down. It could be still connected to the ground. Either way. Tamalomer ki cover. It says, it says ki kavor, which is coming to include that even the tree is buried with the person who was killed. And mishainu mechusar ella kavura. And meaning that we use a tree that the only thing that you still need to do is just bury it. But if it was still connected to the ground, you wouldn't be able to bury it straight away. You'd have to first chop it down. So we don't use that kind of a tree. We need to use a tree that you stick into the ground that you can quickly then just bury. Rabbi Yossi Omer, but Rabbi Yossi who says that you don't even stick it into the ground, you just lean it against the wall. So mi she'enu mechusar ella kvura. That no, you have to mamash be able to just bury it immediately. That according to the Chachamim, we say you stick it into the ground, you have to first take it out of the ground and then bury it. Rabbi Yossi doesn't want that. Rabbi Yossi wants just lean it against the wall and you can quickly bury it directly. Whereas the rabbis say, meh, taking it out of the ground is not considered significant, or is insignificant. The Mishnah had said that Kikilas Hashem Talui, meaning that it causes a disgrace of God when you have somebody hanging there, because people are going to say, oh, why is he hanging there? Oh, because people cursed him. People cursed God. So Tani, we learn about Amr Meir says, Meir, Mashlu Madav Adome, there is a parable for what this is similar to L'shnei Achim To'imim Boyer Achas. If you have two twins in one city and they look alike, one of them became the king, the other one became big nudnik. And the king commanded, and unfortunately they had to kill the nudnik brother. Also Omer, but now everybody who sees the brother hanging there, Omer Hamelech Talu, that the king was hanged. So the king says, wait, I don't want people saying that I was hanged. So they say, take him down. I don't want that. I should look like I'm being hanged. So the same thing with the Rabbanu Shalom. Yeah, the Rabbanu Shalom says, look, you have to hang this guy, but Yidden, right, or man is made in the image of God. You have a person standing there. People are saying that God was cursed, and a person hanging there. So God doesn't want this. So we say, take him down. Amr Meir v'chulei. My mashma, how does where do we learn out Kalani Meroshi Kalani Mizori from Kikilas Hashem Talui? Amr Abai says Abai Kimando Omar Kal Leis. It's like he's saying, I'm not light, i.e., if I'm not light, I'm heavy, I have a headache, I have an arm ache. Rava says to Abaye, Imkain, Kovid alai Roshi, Kovid alai Zori. 1 second, if he's literally just saying, I have a headache, so why not just say, I have a headache? According to Abaye, what's he saying? Kal Leisli. Right? I'm not light. What does I'm not light mean? I'm heavy. I have a headache. So Rava says, if all it's saying is that he has a headache, so just say you have a headache. Why, go backwards? So Elo Rava rather says Rava Commando Omer Kil Li Alma. No, it's like a euphemism, right? Meaning we don't want to say that things are bad, that I have a headache. Rather, we're saying everything is peachy, everything is great. It's a euphemism to say that things are not good. But don't we need Kikilas Hashem Talui to teach that it's a Makalo, it's a Megadef who we hang? So in case name or called Mikalo. We could just say Mikalo, Hashem Talui. Just say he who blasphemes God is hanged. My Kilalas, so what's pshat with Kilalas instead of Mikalo? It's to teach also this Kalani Miroshi, Kalani Mizori. Ve'ema kule lach Yehuda also. So maybe I'll say that this is only teaching me that Kalani Miroshi, Kalani Mizori. It's not teaching that Megadif is beskila, is hanged. Imkei nemer kalas or klas. My kilalas shmamina taiti. Kilalas teaches us both things, that Megadif is hanged, and also Kalani Miroshi, Kalani Mizori. Vilozo bilvad chule. We said that this applies, right, with this mitzvah to ensure that a mace is promptly buried and not left overnight. This applies not just to people who are stoned and hanged, but to all people who pass away. How do we know that somebody who allows a nifter overnight is also in violation of a negative commandment? It says, right, the source in this ki cover tigbrenu, you shall surely bury him. It's coming to include also generally mikan lemelin as miso shover below saisi, that somebody who allows a mace, a nifter, overnight is in violation of below saisi. Where do we have an allusion in the Torah, a remez, that we bury nifters? You shall surely bury him. This is a remez that we bury people from the Torah. Amar lei shvamalka l'Rav Chama. King Shapur said to Rav Chama, kvura me'Torah minayin. How do we know that there is burial in the Torah? Where do we see in the Torah that there is burial? Ishtek v'lo amar lev midi. Rav Chama was quiet. He didn't respond. Amar Vacha bar Yaakov. Says Rav Yaakov, what was the deal with Rav Chama? Why did he go mute? Imser alma bidot the tipshay. It's like this world has been given in the hands of fools. Tibayle lemeimar ki cover. He should have said, well, the pasuk says ki cover. You got to bury. Well, to the avid lay Aaron, I might think that cover just means that you make for him a coffin. Sigberenu, but what about the word sigberenu? Lo mashba le. The thing is, if Rav Chama would say, well, you see, it says cover sigberenu. It's a double lashon. It's coming to include. King Shapur isn't going to buy, he doesn't have a Masor of Torah Shabbat Peh. He wants to have things explicit. He doesn't, when he is trying to understand the concept of the Torah, he's not looking for a ribui. So therefore, Rav Chama figured if he starts talking about cover sigberenu, it's a double lashon, it's coming to include, he would, Shvor Malka wouldn't be on board. V'nema Mide ikbar tzadikei. Why doesn't Rav Chama say, okay, but what about this? Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they were all buried. So minaga ba'alma. But maybe that was just a minig. Maybe that was just a minig, but not actually halacha. Midakavrei Hakadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. What about the fact that the Rebbeinu Shalom himself buries Moshe to the lishnei minaga? So that also could be just because if human beings are buried, then Moshe Rabbeinu is a human being. He should also be buried, but not that it's a mitzvah per se. Tashma v'savdulo kol Yisrael v'kavru also. It says by Aviyah, the son of Yeravam, that they eulogized him, all of Israel, and they buried him. So we see that he was buried. But you could say the same thing there again, because the minig was to bury people, so they did it with the minig. But again, not that it's necessarily a mitzvah. Lo yisoftu v'lo yikavru l'doimin al pnei adama yiyu. Okay, we have another pasuk by the people of Anosos. It says that they will not be eulogized, they will not be buried. They will be like, I think, manure on the ground. So we're saying they aren't buried, implying that others should be buried. Again, again, it's just saying that generally the minig is to bury people, and here we're saying that we're not going to bury these people. We ask a kasha kvura mishum bizyonahu o mishum kaparu. How come we bury people? Do we bury people because it would be disgraceful to not bury people, to have just human corpses lying around? It would be disgraceful? Or is it like a sort of kapara, right? You lower the person into the ground, the person is being lowered down into the ground. It's like a type of, low level kind of thing. It's a form of kapara. What does Rashi say? Okay. He's like being stored away. Shemoridim, they're lowering him. Mashpilin, and like to what's mashpilin? Lashpil, to put down, I guess. Like, okay. Also betachtios, in the depths. It's a sort of kapara. Okay, what's the difference? What if a person says, I don't want you to bury me? Well, if it's about bizayon, sort of generally that it would be disgraceful to not bury him, well then that it doesn't just affect him, it affects his family. Local community, he doesn't have the power to affect his family like that. But if it's about a sense of atonement, okay, if he says, I don't want the kapara, so he doesn't want the kapara. So what do we say? So Toshman b'di ikbur tzadike. Well, we know after all that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov they were buried. So clearly it's not for a kapara because tzadikim don't sin. They don't need kapara. V'yamat mishum kapara tzadikim kapara tzriche. Do tzadikim need kapara? Rather, it must be for bizayin. Actually, it turns out that tzadikim do need kapara. The chsiv, as the pasuk says, Adam ein tzadik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov v'liyechta. There's no such thing as a tzadik who will only do good and never sin. So you know what? It could be even for tzadikim that they need kapara. Tashmak amir v'savdu lo kol Yisrael v'kavru also. That it says by Aviyah, the son of Yeravam, that they eulogized him and they buried him. And if we're saying that burial is a form of atonement, well then why did they only bury Aviyah? What about his brothers? What about the rest of his family? Sure, they were Rishoyim, but they all the more so they need kapara. So how did tzaddiku tavile kapara anach lalavu kapara? No, the thing is, look, if you're a tzaddik, then we want you to have kapara. People are Rishoyim. We're not going out of our way to make sure that they have a kapara. They have to deal with their actions. Tashma lo yisavdu lo yikavru, and also by the Anosos it says that they should not be buried. And again, one second, v'mishum kapara yikavru v'skabel exactly right. But if it's about kapara, then they should be buried so that they will have a kapara to have the kapara. And it says no, we don't. Again, similar. It's like what we said a second ago. If they're Rishayim, we're not interested. What does Rashi say? Even when they're about to die, they didn't do tshuva. So, we're not going to go out of our way to do tshuva for them. Wow, we did a lot today. There was, I hope that the audio was okay. It may not have been. I don't know. It was really cold here. We talked about hanging, hanging people who are stoned, machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chacham, does it only apply to men, or maybe men and women? Does it apply to all people who get stoned, or only Megadef and Oved Avodah Zarah? We learned about Klal Ufaru Klal, Ribui Miut Ribui, all sorts of interesting things. We had an interesting Mishnah also about how exactly we hang people and things like that. Peace out.